This week, we're dishing all the dirt on the ultimate breakup movie, The First Wives Club, and asking if there's anything more satisfying than watching these women get their revenge. Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jackie, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. This week, we are talking about the 1996 comedy, The First Wives Club. But before we dive in, let's get into some housekeeping. If you love the podcast and you want to support us, here are a few ways that you can.
Did you know writing a review and/or rating us helps us get more listeners? If you want to be featured and help us grow, head to Apple, Spotify, Podchasers, or your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review.
And if you like what you hear and want to buy us a virtual cup of coffee, aka a one-time donation, head on over to ko-fi.com/no-more-late-fees.
If you want to purchase our merch, head to our nomorelatefees.redbubble.com.
But we are not alone this week.
Nope.
We're switching it up and having our moms, aka Terri and Christine, give their commentary as we go throughout the movie. Kind of like pop-up video, if you know what that is, but way more unhinged.
Yeah, and if I'm scared and excited. Yay. And if you want to get to know our moms a little bit better, come back later this week as we test their knowledge on our friendship, the podcast, and so much more on our bonus episode. Let's dive into this movie, Jackie.
Despondent over the marriage of her ex-husband to a younger woman, a middle-aged divorcee plunges to her death from her penthouse. At the woman's funeral, her former college friends reunite for the first time in nearly 30 years. When the three discover the reason for their friend's suicide, they realize that all of their ex-husbands have taken them for granted. And deciding it's time for revenge, they make a pact to get back at their exes. Starring Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, Diane Keaton, Maggie Smith, Dan Hedaya, Bronson Pinchot, and Marcia Gay Harden. Among others, this movie is jam-packed with famous faces.
Victor Garber, my boo.
Victor Garber, the dad from Seventh Heaven, which we do not refer to him by name. Sarah Jessica Parker, Jesse Spano from Saved by the Bell. What's her really?
Elizabeth Berkley.
Berkley, thank you. Directed by Hugh Wilson. Screenplay was by Robert Harling, and it was based on The First Wives Club by Olivia Goldsmith. You can currently watch it on Paramount Plus. But before we start, let's go ahead and get into our ratings rewind.
So, you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we'll reveal the rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with our initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again.
The best, would play on repeat.
5-day rental.
Would watch again.
2-day rental.
It's okay, but nothing to write home about.
And same-day rental.
Like most of the men in this movie, trash. Straight up trash.
Ex-husband garbage. All right, well, I'll start with mine, I guess. It's not even a question. Would buy it again. How about you, Jackie?
Same. We own this. It was a Miss Terry favorite she would throw on probably when she was mad at my dad.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. Let's hear what the moms had to say about their ratings. Mama Terry, what was your Y2K rating of First Wives Club?
Would buy it. Did buy it.
Okay. Mom, what was your rating?
Same day rental.
What?
I mean, Danielle, I watched the movie, and the meaning that I have now is a little bit different back then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I did want to tell the story of why I was like, Jackie, if we do First Wives Club, I would really like our moms to be on, because I have a sentimental reason for this movie. So my mom and I, when we were first moving to Florida and it was just me and her, she would try to, take me to different movies and stuff like that. And we would go to Albertsons because they had 99-cent movies. And she would get like a pizza pie crust, and we would make pizza together. And it would just be like a whole routine, fun girls' night in together. And I remember specifically one of the movies that we watched in that time period was First Wives Club. So I think
Aw.
it imprinted on me in that way at the time. So that's why I picked the movie, Mom. I didn't know that you didn't love it that much
I
until
mean,
last
I
night when we
that
watched it and you're like, I don't remember any of this.
I like the Joy Luck Club. I
Yes,
like
we
that.
did.
That was my, that was meant more to me than, you know.
Yeah, it's not in our time period, but I I remember us very much loving that movie. A lot of commentary on that
Yes.
one.
Yep.
So the movie had a budget of $26 million and it made over $181 million worldwide.
That's
You know, okay,
amazing. But also, like, they thought it was not going to do much.
mm-hmm,
It was going to be kind of a flop. It was up against a bunch of like men movies. I'm looking
mm-hmm.
up the box office right now. And all three women want to do a sequel, and the studios don't think it'll make anything. I'm sorry.
I think as we continue to do this show, it just shows that don't even believe what they're selling or what they're saying,
Yeah.
because there's been proof points at this venture. Like, you can't tell me that a female-led movie is not going to do well. You can't tell me that a Black movie is not going to perform well, especially when we're seeing such small budgets that they were originally given, and then they way exceed, and then it's like the goalpost moves again and again and again and again. We have had so many female directors, writers, and one of the trends is that you get these female directors, you give them these like big movies that nobody really wants. They're YA, they're women-led movies, and then they do extremely well, and then the second or third movie or sequel that they get, a man takes over
Yep.
every time. And like, if I was, for example, J.K. Rowling, she could have pushed Warner Brothers to say, you know what, I want at least one of the directors of the Harry Potter movies to be a woman.
Yep.
But we know she's trash. But yes, I think one of the movies that this movie was up against in the box office was a Bruce Willis movie, and it beat it. It's not a Die
Mhm.
Hard movie. It's like Stand Tall or
Last Man Standing.
There you go. It has something to do with standing up. I was
And there is nothing like, as much as they're like, oh, it was up against a bunch of girl movies. No, it was not. It was Last Man Standing came in second. That was the first week for that. Then it was Fly Away Home, Maximum Risk, which I don't even know what that
Never
is.
heard of it.
And then is Bulletproof with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans.
Wise Club grossed 105.4 million in the United States and Canada, and then 76 million in other territories, for the total of $181.4 million worldwide. And it became the 11th highest grossing film of 1996. Oh, Lil Raj. Sometimes we're on the same wavelength, and sometimes you just be talking crazy. Roger Ebert, writing for the Chicago Sun-Times, gave the first Wise Club 2 out of 4 stars. He
Bro.
declared the film heavy on incident but light on plot, filled with heartfelt talks with slapstick and sitcom situations.
Roger Marie Ebert. What were you thinking?
Before we get into cast and crew, let's hear a word from our pod pals.
There's too many Home Alones, there's too many Tremors, but I like to watch them for rotten treasure.
Hello, I'm Kai Bobby. co-host of the Rotten Treasure podcast, where I talk with my friend Jim O'Donnell and a special guest about movie franchises that arguably went on a little longer than they should have. Hey Jim, what movies do we review?
Home Alone, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, Home Alone 3, Home Alone 4, Taking Back the House.
Wait.
Home
Jim,
Alone,
Jim,
Holiday Heist.
We review more than just Home Alone movies.
Tremors, Tremors 2, Aftershock.
Do we have any guests? Do we have guests, Jim?
Scott Campbell, Robert and Donnell from Watching It, Sarah Carter.
Okay, how do people find us on the internet, Jim?
Follow us at Rotten_Treasure on Instagram, at Rotten Treasure on Twitter, Rotten Treasure on
all right.
Facebook.
You know what? That's enough of your list. So, folks, if you still want to find us, you can listen to us on your preferred podcast app, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Podbean.com, Google Podcasts, Listen Notes, not SoundCloud.
So casting, Danielle. Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn were the first actresses reported to have landed one of the three starring roles, but Bette Midler had wanted to play the more glamorous role of Lise at first. Okay.
I'm not surprised by that.
No, and I will say this movie, top to bottom, aside from Mr. Camden, perfectly cast.
Yes.
Like,
agreed.
I don't think this movie would have had as much heart and levity if these three women had not been cast in these roles. It could have fallen really flat or felt very like whiny, you know, or that we're pandering to the divorcee audience. But these women breathed such life into all of these characters.
Yeah.
That it was just fantastic.
And they didn't take themselves too seriously. I think they're all comedic actresses because Scott Rudin, who is a legendary producer, he produced this film. And so he had intended to cast Jessica Lange for the role of Elise, I believe. And they decided to actually rewrite the character from the book. So if you know anything about the book, the movie is not that close to the book at all. They changed a lot. They almost call this movie script kind of like a Frankenstein situation. It was a lot of different pieces. They had different writers come in. They had some ghost writers come in to try to like put it together. But I love down some Jessica Lange. Okay, I do. And I think she can be comedic. I see it watching American Horror Story. She has those zingers, and there's nothing I don't think she could do. But Goldie Hawn just fit this
Top
role
tier.
So much better. And Goldie Hawn wanted to bring on Sally Field, and I think Sally Field would have done great too in the role of Annie. Like, honestly, either one could have gone for me because we've learned that she could play comedic roles pretty well. But I think Diane Keaton was perfectly matched as well. Sally pulled out because she said she lacked musicality, which I think is kind of weird because they only have that one scene at the end and they didn't have that scripted. It wasn't planned until the last minute because they were like, we don't have an ending.
Oh, I did not know that. But also, like, Diane Keaton, not a great singer, but that added to the scenes is that, like, I mean, she can carry a tune, but it's not, she's standing next to fucking Bette Midler. Like, you're not gonna be Bette.
To this day, even when I was younger, I remember thinking, because you could tell that they were lip singing, which is totally normal for a movie. But as a kid, I was like, putting two and two together. I just always thought, yeah, Bette Midler sang. I never thought Goldie Hawn or Diane Keaton sang their parts, but apparently they did. So
it fit the characters. Like, that's what you expect. In a group of three friends, not everyone is going to be a singer. I wish that Mandy Patinkin was cast as Aaron as originally intended. Unfortunately, he had to drop out and then was replaced by Mr. Camden.
Yeah, I think I would have had a hard time hating Mandy Patinkin.
That's true.
He's a great actor. He probably would have brought me there. But rewatching this and seeing that pedo It was very easy to hate him.
Oh yeah, like immediately I'm like, nope,
You're
go away.
trash. That's why your hair is running away from your face.
On site.
On site.
If you have no clue what we're referring to, go and watch our Attack of the Clones episode. And if you're a Patreon member, you have a fun little GIF that you can use of Danielle on site. The role of Duarto originally went to writer David Rakoff, but he was fired after only one day on set and was replaced by Bronson Pinchot.
I think he's so underrated. I love him so much.
He's so good.
Yeah.
We were huge Perfect Strangers fans. So like anytime we see her, we're like, it's Balky. Yay. I'm really disappointed that we didn't get Jon Stewart to play Elise's lover. Apparently he shot most of his scenes, but they needed to trim the fat. And so unfortunately he was cut out of the movie. I just love Jon Stewart so much.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see Elise have a little love interest, but I also think it's kind of great. One of my favorite things about this movie is that when people talk about it, sometimes I think people say rom-com and it goes back to like when it's female centered, they don't know what else to call it besides a chick flick and a rom-com. I love that it doesn't center around any of them dating per se. I know at the end we get Bette Midler's character. They say that her and Morty are getting back together, but it's really about the core of their friendship and getting their vengeance. And I really like that. And I feel like the Jon Stewart like relationship, it would have been nice. Maybe he was doing the opposite of her ex-husband, but I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. But the director said Jon Stewart did a really good job.
I want the Jon Stewart cut.
Yeah, like the Snyder cut. I want the Stewart cut immediately. Give us the Stewart cut. Yes. Dan Hedaya, who plays Morty, he won the role over Hector Elizondo.
I love Hector Elizondo, but I think Dan Hedaya was perfectly cast. He has that just tiny bit of like could be schmarmy
slime,
yeah, where Hector is so endearing, and I just love him.
He's wonderful. Our boy Timothy.
Here he is. He came back.
All right. So Timothy Oliphant, this is his movie debut. They were able to get him to come on because he impressed them with his local stage work. So he played Brett Artanen. I don't even know how to say this. I didn't even know the guy had a last name, but he plays the director for the movie that Elise is trying to get into. And he looks so fresh-faced and baby-faced. You want to talk about the cameos? I was very proud of myself that I was able to spot some of these people because we were younger when this movie came out, and a lot of these people are like old heads, you know? It's kind of like for us, we're watching certain movies, we know who these people are, but like my sister's like, I don't know who these people are. When I was trying to get her to watch Spice World, she's like, I don't get it. So
yeah, so a ton of cameos. We get Ivana Trump, who in the movie famously stated, "Don't get mad, get everything." We have Gloria Steinem, Kathy Lee Gifford, author Olivia Goldsmith, director Hugh Wilson as the commercial director, and Heather Locklear as the younger lover of James Naughton's character Gil. So, yep, clocked all of those. Well, maybe I didn't clock the director or the author, but everyone else that like celebrity, I was like, oh, yep, there she is. There she is.
So the line, "Don't get mad, get everything," was the marketing department had decided that was going to be the tagline for the poster and for the movie. And so the director was like, let's make sure we add it to the script, and had Ivana say it, which it's one of the most iconic lines, even though there's so many lines that Brenda! Like It's like it just lives in my head all the time.
Just like, well, there's a line that Brenda says where she's like, they're talking about Goldie Hawn's character, Elise, her plastic surgery. And she's like, did you get the whole enchilada? Which originally was going to be, did you get the whole Ivana? But once Ivana cameoed, they changed it to the whole enchilada.
Oh my God. Here's my question to you.
Okay.
Who do you think out of the stars on the set was considered difficult to work with?
I know the answer to this. It was Bette Midler. So should we jump right into the movie?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
And jump in is probably not the best
Oh,
word.
damn it. Sorry, Cynthia. So yes, the amazing, lovely Stockard Channing plays Cynthia. It starts out as a flashback. The four of them, Cynthia, Annie, Elise, and Brenda, all graduated together in 1969. They graduated from college. Cynthia seemed like she was very affluent even back then, so she gave all of the girls a strand of pearls for their as a graduation gift.
I feel like they're all pretty affluent.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much money is really going on in this movie. Sorry to like just
Yes.
butt in there, but you know how when we talk about diversity and stuff like that in some of the other movies, there are some movies where I'm just like, that's fine. I don't need it.
Mhm.
Because this is a movie that let the white ladies do what the white ladies do best. That's the kind of feel I have for this movie. I'm not complaining about
It's a
diversity.
very specific subset of like Upper East Side ladies. Like we know of the ladies that they're depicting in this movie.
I'll give you this. They are the grown-up college versions of the girls from All I Want to Do.
Yes.
That's definitely
Very
and they knew
like
where
they always have those like feminist forward roots, but then they let men dull their shine.
pretty much.
Here we get that kind of flashback. Then it goes to present day. We see Stockard Channing as the grown-up Cynthia, and she's just very distraught, very miserable. She has newspapers all around reporting on her ex-husband, who is like a tycoon baron, remarrying this young hot girl played by Heather Locklear. She has her pearls that she gives to the maid and then asks the maid to also mail some letters.
Made from Clueless.
I'm not the Mexican.
Right.
So Cynthia does commit suicide by jumping out of her penthouse. The next scenes we get are kind of introducing the other women. So that happens. We don't know much about Cynthia other than that. And then we're introduced to grown-up Annie. She has a daughter named Chris, who she's very close with, who comes out as a lesbian. We find out she is separated from her husband, Aaron, but they're still like hanging out. And Chris is pissed.
Yeah, she loves her dad, but she hates the way her dad treats her mom.
Yes.
And also she lives with their grandmother is there. Her mother / the grandmother is there. And she's very opinionated.
And it's really interesting, especially watching it now from the perspective of we understand so much more about generational trauma, women's expectations in the home, and how are those are imposed on Annie by her mom. Like unknown, like her mom is very well intentioned, loves her daughter, but she's also like, it'll work out because like she's just from that era where you don't get divorced, like you just work shit out even if you're miserable, like you just stick with it.
I love the dynamic of the three of them because it reminds me so much of in different aspects. Like obviously my mom is not what's the word? A wallflower like Annie is. But I really thought the dynamic between the three generations was very interesting and how loving they were and how the grandma came around at the end. It was super sweet. So I definitely asked my mom about how she felt about these characters. Let's hear what she said.
I thought it showed you the generational divide between the three women, the daughter who was a little bit more, I guess a little bit more like now, and then the grandma who's still living in the 50s, where how she wanted her daughter to make it work in terms of a marriage. And then there was her daughter who was being pulled from, she was just, so conflicted about what should I do, and should I try to make this work? And well, there wasn't even a question of should I make this work. It was just I have to make this work.
Mhm.
And her mom was just, kind of prodding her along to, yeah, come on, let's go. And then her daughter, who saw very, very clearly that no, that is
He's a
um,
douchebag.
user. I didn't want to say all of that, but he's definitely a user, and she saw right through him. So in that way, yes, I saw how whatever time frame that they grew up in really impacted how they dealt with a partner or a marriage, or their
Mhm.
thoughts on it, or what to do about it.
I just thought their dynamic reminded me of Yumi and Anna a lot. Like
Boy.
Nana being very critical and me being like, nah, this is the new way to do it. And you being like, okay, I gotta find a happy medium. What about you, Mama Terry? What did you think?
To think about my family dynamics with my mom and my kids, we didn't come from the previous generation. My mom's generation never said anything.
Yeah.
They were just quiet. So you never got feedback. You never got, what do you do? So I never talked to my mom about anything, about when my marriage was hurting, I didn't go to her because she did not talk about things. So for our generationally, I made sure that my kids felt that they could talk to me about anything, because I missed that. I missed having, someone to confide in and who would have my back.
Yeah.
And I think both did a really good job with like the fact that Jackie and I feel like we can tell you anything. I think at this point it's probably TMI to the highest degree.
I don't mind them.
Uh,
But Danielle, you are kind of prudish about certain things, though. I mean,
I just
when
had
it comes
one.
down to it, I would still want you to, say whatever it is that's on your mind. But you are no. She still doesn't do that, Jackie. She is like, Mom, no, we're not going to talk about that. Or
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
oh,
I don't want to talk about like sex with you.
It's hard. Communication is hard.
It
It
is.
really is.
And you have to work at it to be.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will keep that in mind, Mother. I will try my hardest, but be careful what you ask for.
Not a prude, Danielle. I am not a prude. Okay.
Christine, have you found as you get older that some things that you would have tolerated as you were younger, you're like,
Absolutely.
oh, what is that? And I'm like, what is happening with me? And I was like, fine with that when I was younger, but
Yeah.
you just change. You change as you age, and your wisdom helps you out on
You're kind of
what is happening over there.
you also care less about what other people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're younger, you worry about that, or at least I did all the time.
I don't know if I ever really did, but in terms of with Danielle, I expected her to kind of come to me and say, I don't know if I would have freaked out or anything. I mean, there were other things that I freaked out about, but there were certain things I don't think I would have if she trusted me enough to tell me. I would probably do a long lecture, which they don't like. No, I I think, I don't know, for whatever reasons, I was that kind of person. She didn't think that I was. She was always afraid to come to me and say, but I was past that already. I was just like, come on already. You know, she was like
Yeah.
my little friend. And I thought it would be okay. I wanted her to do that.
Well, okay.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I think I, I asked some of my other friends and they're like, you tell your mom and your grandma way too much stuff. I mean, I tell you my bowel movements at this point, and it's just like, is it necessary? I don't know.
But
But
if you don't have someone to tell that to, who are you
That's
going to
true.
tell it to but your mom?
that's
Yeah.
true.
Somebody needs to care.
Yeah. I just don't know if I'm ever going to get to the point where I'm going to be telling her about sex.
Okay,
Whatever you're
Danny.
comfortable with. You don't have to.
I mean, Jackie and I don't even talk about sex.
No, not
We don't talk about.
But I do know, Mom, if like something really weird happened or like I'm scared about something, yes, I would
Yeah.
definitely tell you. Like
Okay.
100%.
And she'd be under duress.
Yes. This took a turn I didn't see coming.
The next scene is we're introduced to Elise, and she's an aging actress. She's incredibly famous, but she wants to be youthful. She's starting to get the mom roles and things like that, which I'm surprised she hasn't already. Because in
Yeah.
Hollywood, you start getting the mom roles at like 30.
Yes.
This wants collagen filler in her lips. Her doctor's like, I don't think so. The doctor is played by Rob Reiner, who is
Love
a
it.
fantastic director in his own right. So I'm sure it was just like one of these ladies called and was like, hey, Rob, do you want like this little bit part in this movie?
Well, it's probably Scott Rudin because he
That's true.
knows everybody apparently. But in this scene, actors created Goldie Hawn simulated collagen treatment by injecting her lips with a harmless saline solution. Though temporary, Hawn later remarked in interviews that the experience was quite painful and that it had discouraged her from ever getting collagen for real. I
So-
wonder if she's kept that sentiment.
So you're telling me we have seen
Mm,
movies in this
Mhm.
time frame with fantastic makeup
Mhm.
teams and practical effects. You injected saline into an actress's lips to simulate collagen injections. Like that could have been done with makeup.
Agreed. Just thinking about it, I start visualizing it and I feel pain about it.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, it was unnecessary. I'm sure they could have put a prosthetic and
Yeah.
it would have been fine. If they could do what they did for Miss Doubtfire, why couldn't we get lips?
Right?
I guess this is ironic. The author, Olivia Goldsmith, she wrote this book, and the whole idea of this movie essentially was that all the societal pressure that are put on middle-aged women to stay looking young and beautiful, and the result that some of them undergo like really bad cosmetic surgeries, like we're seeing with Elise here. And what ended up happening to Olivia is that she died in 2004 at the age of 54 due to complications from anesthesia during an elective cosmetic surgery procedure, which that's fucking horrible.
Really scary. Don't mess with your face. Although, like, I feel like because in this movie, they mentioned that they're like 46-ish.
Mhm.
And the ladies are playing younger than they actually were because they were all born within 45 days of one another and they all celebrated their 50th birthdays while they were shooting this movie.
I love that.
I do too.
And I love that, like, yes, they said Bette Midler was difficult, but I love that they didn't seem to have any onset issues with
Mhm.
each other. So could have just been she was opinionated, and we already know in Hollywood what that means.
From an interview snippet I read, I don't know if it was a cast member or a
It was
crew.
Bulky.
Was it?
Yeah, he went on AV and he defended the director and said that Bette Midler was very
unkind.
yes. Also, I saw one where Joan Rivers lived in the neighborhood that they were shooting, and she went up to the director and was like, "What are you doing in here? Why are you in my neighborhood?" Kind of like joking. And she was like, "Okay, well, if you're the director of this movie, why are you sitting in the car, hiding in the car with the Teamsters, or whatever?" He's like, "I'm afraid of Bette Midler."
I mean, fair. I could see it. I could see where I'd be like, I don't want to be on any side of Bet right now. I'm gonna go just sit somewhere.
Yeah.
So next we meet Brenda, played by Bette Midler. She is prepping for her son Jason's bar mitzvah. She is divorced from Morty, who owns like an appliance store that started as like a homegrown mom and pop shop and has grown into this multi-million dollar company. And she was there at the ground level. Like she helped build that company with him. And
Right.
essentially he traded her in for a newer model played by Sarah Jessica Parker.
Every woman handles divorce differently, especially when it comes to kids. And she is still hurting over the loss of Morty. And also Morty cheated on her with one of the like store clerks or somebody that worked at the store. And so I think that even hurts 10 times more, and they have like a contentious relationship.
And
But
it's all driven because she still loves him. She never
right.
wanted this divorce.
Exactly.
Like, and so she's just coping with the fact that like she's not young and hot anymore. And so that's where his attention turned.
And she's always kind of putting her son in the middle, asking him kind of questions about their dad. And you could tell like he just doesn't want drama. He's gonna grow up with a ton of anxiety. 100%.
Yeah.
I always commend my mom for not doing that to me. Never asking questions. Like she was curious as to what was happening with like my dad and my stepmom. She just kept it a buck. She would complain about my dad cheating. I'm not gonna lie, but she never made it like awkward for me to see my dad, which I always appreciated.
And my mom did the same. I mean, even after they had separated and even after they had finally divorced, he came over every night for dinner. Like he had an apartment across town, but he came over every night for dinner.
I do commend that the both of them did prioritize their child. And I could say that for both of you guys, that you both really made sure that as much as you could, that we had relationships with our dad, no matter how mad or messed up they were. You guys really made sure that they were in our lives. And you know, in tandem, I got to have a bonus dad because Ron was around all the time because Terri was making sure that her kids saw their son, their dad.
Yeah.
Son, father, brother, cousin, Holy Spirit.
Now we are at Cynthia's funeral. We're introduced to Maggie Smith's character, Gwynella.
Oh, yeah. The wig on Miss Dame Maggie Smith is a sight to behold.
Bonnie says, he goes, "Hey, it's McGonagall." And he's like, she's looked the same since the 90s. And then he turns to me and goes, "Maggie Smith is a vampire." And I'm like, probably not wrong.
Yeah,
but we love her.
Super weird because like when you look at the ages of these people, like I don't even think she was that old when this movie came out.
No, she's just always looked the same.
Yeah, it's weird, but okay. Love that she's in it. Love how deadpan unserious she is in this movie. She is like the queen of divorcees because what has she been divorced like 5 times, 3 times? And so she's richer than God at the same time. So we see her at the funeral first and she comes into play later.
Yep. And then we're also introduced to
So Belky, that's
Duarto. Duarto, played by Bronson Pinchot. Pinchot.
who
Uh,
who Brenda works for essentially.
yes.
Because
And
he's an interior designer, yeah.
exactly. Yep. That's how the three ladies kind of reconnect is they see each other at the funeral and they're like, we had no idea that she was like this distraught and why
Yeah.
would she do this? And kind of just reeling from the fact that their friend just killed herself. So they all decide to go to lunch together. And so at first they're very standoffish.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they start drinking. Drinks start flowing and convo starts happening. I love when they ask Elise what she's had done, and Elise tries to say nothing with her like pillow lips, freshly collagenated lips, and Bridget just looks at her and goes, "She's a quilt."
There's a few elements that show each other's personalities, right? When they first reconnect after the funeral's over, first you have Annie who is like all over the place, spastic, very spastic, normal Diane Keaton energy. So it's not random.
Yeah.
Also, when she wants to ask if they can go to lunch, and it takes her forever to get there because she's so passive aggressive, essentially.
Yes.
Brenda, of course, being just no filter queen that she is, screams at, we gotta eat. So, spit it out already. Her and Brenda and Elise are like, just spit it out.
Yeah.
And I do love that Elise is she was very Mariah Carey about it, where she's like pretending she doesn't know Brenda's fucking name.
Yeah.
She's like, because Brenda's like, hello? And Annie's like, do you remember us? And she's like,
I don't know her.
I was like, come on, Elise, stop with your bullshit.
Yeah.
And then when they get to lunch, like you were saying, they're not talking to each other, but I think they're all trying to front. And this scene makes me think like, wow, we don't have Facebook in this time period. So people really don't know what's going on in each other's lives. Maybe more Elise than everyone else because she's famous. So they're all trying to pretend and
because
not be really.
You don't have text messaging. Like
No.
you would have to pick up a phone and call someone. There's no email really. Like we hadn't entered into the age of accessibility.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, let's jump back to the funeral. I forgot a couple of things.
Oh.
This is where we're introduced to Heather Locklear as the second wife. And like Annie's trying to give the benefit of the doubt because they're like, how dare he bring her to Cynthia's funeral, blah, blah, blah. And Annie's like, oh, you don't know. Like she may be here to comfort him. He may be really upset, blah, blah, blah. No, he's straight up rubbing this lady's nipple at his ex-wife's funeral.
So nasty.
These men.
It's so gross.
So gross. Okay, now back to lunch. Brenda and Annie are wearing their pearls. I noticed Elise was not. Elise wasn't wearing any.
No, she wasn't wearing the pearls. Yeah. She does say, oh, so you guys are wearing those pearls. Like,
yeah.
Like she don't know where they are.
We find out both Brenda is divorced and Morty has a new girlfriend, Shelly. Annie is separated and Elise is currently going through a divorce. So they're all essentially
husband.
Yeah.
Played by Victor Garber.
Yeah. I love Victor Garber. Not in this role.
I still love him
in this role.
He does play douche very well, like in Legally Blonde.
Yes. So then they start talking about Shelly, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, as Morty's new girlfriend. Annie and Aaron have been together 25 years. They're now separated.
And they're going to counseling.
Yes. And their therapist is played by Marcia Gay Harden. And she's like written books and all of this stuff. So she's like a renowned therapist that they're going to. During the course of the conversation, at one point, Elise is like, I wish I could just let it all go like you, Annie. And I'm like, poor Annie. And I'm like, she doesn't dress dowdy. I would say Brenda dresses the most dowdy out of all of them.
Mhm.
Annie just dresses like Hamptons casual is how I would describe her outfit.
I don't know. She wears a lot of blazers and stuff. Like Annie looks like she's going to work, but she ain't got no job.
Yeah.
Annie, you ain't got no job. What's with
She
the
gets one later.
She does, but
And then she puts on a power suit, which I really love.
yeah. Yeah. You know what? Annie's style in this movie is just Diane Keaton.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And I love that for her.
Also find out that Elise's husband wants half of all of the assets and alimony. So this is a scene where they're sitting in a conference room with their lawyers. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, you were no one. Now you're this super famous producer, probably making his own money and getting residuals off of her shit. And now you still want half of my shit. Like,
He has no, like, he doesn't care.
yeah. And the thing is like his lawyer makes sure to say anything they acquired together is either you pay me for, or we sell off and we keep we split the proceeds.
I wanted to ask our moms what they thought about the behavior of all the men once we're introduced to them. So let's hear what the moms have to say. What did you guys think about the husbands in this movie? I'll start with you, Mama Terri.
They all took advantage of their wives. They all took advantage of the fact that they were involved in making the money.
Mhm.
You know, Bette Midler's character worked the stores, and Goldie Hawn did the movies, and Diane Keaton kept the house. And then when they were ready to go do something else, it was like, too bad for you.
Yeah.
They were all horrible. They were all horrible men. They weren't.
Yeah.
They really were.
They were trash.
They were
100%.
horrible. They
Yeah.
obviously were not in the marriage for the marriage, because
No.
they didn't care. They didn't care.
And I think that's also a generational thing too. At that time, when you looked at when you got married, it was like, my only job as a husband is to make the money. And I think we're seeing that shift. A lot of the conversations that are happening right now is that women, because they can make their own money, they can be independent, they're asking a lot more of men. And so there's definitely a shift. So going back and watching some of those movies and seeing how these men were just like, it's totally fine about what we're doing is insane.
Like, what's the problem?
Right. This is fine.
Well, and it's even like when we were growing up, Dad only had to get himself ready. You were packing the car, getting the kids ready. He just waited till everyone was in the car and then was in the bathroom for 45 minutes while we're sitting in the garage waiting.
Yeah, while we're in the car.
Oh man.
Forget the vacation he booked, where he booked a different hotel every night.
What?
I was packing up 4 people, 3 of them children, every day to go to a new hotel, because
he was not patient, so he'd be like, "Come on, we're ready to go." And
you
it's
ready?
like,
You ready? You ready? You ready?
No, I have 3 kids and myself to take care of.
Yeah.
You
Hello.
have one.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah. The one thing Daddy always said is, I've never changed since the day we got married. And I would say that's the problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you're a father now.
Yeah.
You're a husband now. There's so many things that have
Yeah.
happened to you in 25 years. You should have changed.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of men change. They
Yeah.
just don't. They don't think they need to change to adapt to
They don't
what their life
understand.
is becoming.
Yeah, they don't understand. They don't understand that it takes 2 people.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I find women to be like superheroes because of all of the
Absolutely.
things that they had to do. You know, the children picking up and dropping off, and dropping off to all of the activities, and you know, if he's late working, it's not a priority to say, well, listen, I can't stay late today. I have to, you know, I'll have to meet with my kid's teacher.
Mhm.
And women are awesome because of
Yep.
all of the things, the multitasking that a woman is capable of doing. Not
That's it.
It's just the capabilities. It's like so wide and varied, and we carry
You
a
just
lot
do
of
it.
load. Yes, we
Yeah,
just do it because there is no choice.
Yeah.
There is no
exactly.
choice. And those
Exactly.
men in that movie, they were just, I didn't really like how they flaunted the woman, the sidebar, the women
Mhm.
who came along and they were
Side chick
skinny
mommy.
and they were skinny and glamorous and they can bellow out, I want this, I want that. There was never anything about, well, we have to kind of stick with our budget. It was okay to stick with a budget with a wife, but not with
Yep.
the side chick, as Danielle
Yep.
said. The disrespect was just in your face, and I didn't like that at
It
all.
was full on disrespect. That was
Yeah.
the perfect word, Christine.
Do we meet Morty next? Who do we meet next?
Yes. So they're out shopping because Brenda needs a dress for the bar mitzvah. And so they go to this store and there's like this little, like, short, very form-fitting dress in the window. And Brenda makes an offhanded comment about it. And then they walk inside. Morty's there with Shelly. Shelly comes out wearing that dress. And I hate the weight shaming on both ends. I hate that Brenda says, "What, you can't buy her whole dress.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy her a whole dress." But then Shelly immediately responds back with like some fat shaming comment. And Brenda's not like, Brenda is just a lady. Like, she's not even heavy. And regardless, you just don't comment about people's weight, like, ever.
Well, I think it's a projection because it is something that Brenda is insecure about within herself, and Shelley knows it. And so it's like a back and forth with these two very insecure people because
Yes.
essentially it's alluded that Shelley had a full on makeover herself. And maybe she was a little bit young, naive, and dowdy. And she uses Morty's money to, upgrade herself. It's that whole thought, you're not ugly, you're just poor.
Yes, because in a future scene where she's having lunch with Maggie Smith, you can
Mhm.
tell she's not refined at all.
No.
Like, you fix the outside, girl, but you got to work on the inside.
Yeah. In this scene, so they're at the store, like you said, and Duarte is with Brenda. Hope I
Mhm.
said that name right.
Duarto.
Duarto, sorry. When he sees Brenda spot Morty, he's begging her not to go over there.
Mhm.
But then when she does, he's hiding. And I've always questioned the fact that when he comes to decorate the house, why Morty never said, well, that's who my ex-wife works for. I think this is sus.
Mhm.
Like, did he never meet Duarto ever?
I've never even pondered that.
So I was like, okay, maybe that's why he didn't notice, because he's hiding in this scene. I can understand if they got a divorce, so he doesn't really know who his wife works for or whatever. And she does say that like they don't really interact with each other. They kind of talk through Jason essentially. But yeah, that was always one of my questions. Like, how are you hiring the person your ex-wife works for? You didn't know that? Okay.
Yeah. Now we're sitting with the director, played by Timothy Oliphant, and he approaches her with this project. She's super excited because I think work has slowed down for her, and then she finds out it's for the role of the mother.
Right, because when she was at the lunch with the girls, she was boasting about this new play or movie, sorry, this new
Yeah.
movie that was coming out, and that there's this really cool role of Monique, right?
Yes.
And so she thinks she's talking to the director about the role of Monique. And then he starts going, I'm thinking for the makeup, it's just like grotesque. And she's like confused because she's like, Monique is the lead. Why would, and she doesn't say it out loud, but he's like, for the mother role. And you could tell she is just holding on by a thread to keep it together. So after that meeting, we see her just get absolutely trashed at a bar and going on and on about how he wants her to play the mother. And he's just
The poor
poor.
bartender.
Yeah. He's
He's
very
like,
supportive.
he is. And then eventually he's just like, I'm going to get you some coffee.
Yeah.
Annie is at home. She's cooking with her mom. They're figuring out dinner. And she gets a phone call from Aaron, and he's like, I want to take you out to dinner. Can you meet me at the hotel that I've been staying at? So she's all excited. She gets all dressed up. They go out, have a lovely dinner, go back up to his room. They bone. And then he tells her he loves her. She says, I love you back. And then he's like, by the way, I want a divorce.
Way
The
in which
amount of just gaslighting from this man
Mm.
and like love bombing. And I'm like, what is your end goal, sir?
The way he does this is so cruel. He's like, well, I was thinking it was a goodbye. A goodbye is when both people know that
It's a
we're
goodbye.
leaving.
Yeah.
Like, let me have, you've taken my choice away from me. It's so disgusting. And so he's telling Annie he wants a divorce. And in the middle of it, could you imagine? Because we do have a scene where Annie does go to her therapist, again, played by Marsha Gay Harden. And
When she hits her with that foam bat, she should have won an Oscar.
so the therapist's goal is to try to get Annie to stop being a people pleaser and to
Yes.
start tapping into her emotions. What her husband or ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband, Aaron likes to do, he likes to pretend that he's the victim in this
Yes.
situation. He likes to project that that Annie is a manipulator.
And is
And
like the crazy one.
right, when Annie's having actual normal reactions to this, and not even a normal enough. But in the span of this whole situation, Annie is just, after they have sex, she's like, oh, Dr. So-and-so would be so happy and proud of us because so she's thinking they're getting back together. She's telling him to bring his stuff back to the house and he's ready to like, I'm out. And in the midst of all of this, their therapist walks at the door because the bitch has a key. And
because
then
they've been boned.
Right. So unethical. Let me tell you. When I would have rolled out my revenge plot, I would have definitely sent something to the whoever runs the board
The
of
therapy board of New York.
fuck yes. Bitch needs her license revoked. You're
Yeah.
not supposed, you're sleeping with clients, bitch.
And you've written books and stuff. I can bring down your entire fucking career.
Yes. It's insane. And on top of it, she's trying to tell Aaron, oh, did you tell her yet? No. And then
based on her reaction, do you think I've told her about you?
And then Aaron's like, you're manipulating me. And then she's like, oh, the therapist is like, Aaron, her feelings are valid. Bitch, don't even. I will end you. Give me
I would pay to see you in that. Not that I want you to ever go through that situation,
Jackie,
but just
I would never
your
be in
reaction.
that situation.
You
I
would
would
be
never.
in jail.
I wouldn't. First of all, I would never let it escalate
No.
that far. There's no way.
Well, and we know what gaslighting looks like. We know
Yeah.
what victim, like playing the victim looks like now. We can call that shit out, but like, I hated it. I hated it.
I know one thing. The reaction that you would think I would do is like yell and scream. I am a Cancer through and through. Okay? And I am for the long haul in the sense that you fuck me over like that, you would be lucky if I was to just yell at you and lose my shit. Oh no. Oh no. I am going to have a well executed plan to make sure that you will never forget what you did to me.
Yeah. As long as you live.
Never forget.
For better or for worse, bitch, it's for worse for the rest of your fucking life.
The bar is in hell. That's the one thing I could say. If you and I have ever had beef in life, people in the world, and you were able to just like the worst thing that happened was that we're just not friends anymore, we're just not talking anymore, you got off lucky. I'll tell you that. Because you don't want me thinking, you don't want me plotting, you don't want. Sometimes it's just not even worth it. But if it's worth it, I feel so sorry for you. And that's all I'm gonna say. I am not one to be tugged with. And you know what? I'm sure if we asked my mom the same question, she would say something maniacal. That's also the worst part. I can plot something by myself. Don't let Christine jump on this bandwagon. Shit me.
She's
That's why
rowing this boat too. At this point, they all received their letters that Cynthia had mailed out. The letters just reflect how sad Cynthia is that they didn't keep in touch and how she misses her friends and that she wishes that she had attributes of each one of them. So, just a really touching letter, but also very sad that she was in this very lonely place and didn't feel like she could reach out to them.
I mean, I know this movie's a comedy and it's all about revenge, but I think the biggest thing that you could pull from it is how important female friendships are.
Yes.
I think that now there's studies that come out about it. Say if you have really strong friendships, you live longer, you live happier lives. And I think that so many people get lost in marriages and kids and they don't prioritize their friendships. It's important, even for men having their friendships and their things. Like, I think it's a Western thought process that significant others are like the only relationships to have,
Mhm.
essentially. While if you look at other societies, it's about community in general. And I could not exist without my female friendships. I couldn't. I think
Yeah.
about like all the different groups of girlfriends that I have and how they just rally like no matter what happens. I have really amazing guy friends. I'm not saying that I don't,
Yeah.
but my female friendships like fill my cup. They make me feel whole again. They
Yeah.
lift me up when I'm having dark times and vice versa. And so I love that this is a theme in this movie that even after years of not talking to each other, they were able to come together and help each other. And that switch happens after they have that big blow up fight, right? Like in the
Mhm.
beginning, them trying to come together was about revenge and it was very surface. And I think it comes back full circle that that's why they changed their motives of what they're doing this for.
Right. I completely agree. And it's just having that sounding board. Someone and there are toxic friendships as well, and just really working on identifying those friends that are your ride or dies. They're going to be your mirror. They're going to support you. They're going to uplift you, but they're also going to be honest with you in hard times and really help you out, make really thoughtful suggestions about and always checking in, like, do you need to vent or do you need solutions, things like that, and just really weeding out the people that don't serve you.
I I may tell a joke, but I won't tell a lie. And that's not always an easy thing with me.
Yeah.
Like I'll sugarcoat it sometimes, I don't think my approach is always like hurtful.
Blunt. Yeah.
And it can be blunt,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's like if you have a bunch of people around you that are just going to be like telling you the good fluffy things, sometimes you got to have real shit being said,
Yeah.
like this is not working. I see that things aren't working out here.
Yeah.
um
I mean, we've had in some of my groups, like, checking in, like, "Hey, have you found a therapist yet? Have you asked them about med?" Like, just checking in, like, "We see that you're struggling.
yeah.
You know that you're struggling. Like, we're gonna hold you accountable for this because we know in the long run, it's going to be better for you." Like, those are the type of friends you need, is like, "We're
Yeah.
always gonna be here for you, but we also know that we can always do things to better ourselves."
Yeah, it's just a blessing. It's a blessing to
Yes.
have female friendships. It's a blessing to have sisters. You know, some
Yeah.
people, their first and last friend is their sister. And so if you have it, your cousins, your friends, make sure that you're fostering those relationships. Don't take them for granted. Make sure you're checking in because it's literally for your health,
Yeah.
if anything. So I
And then
love
one
that about
day
this
you'll
movie.
just buy a compound and y'all just live in your houses with your pets and y'all just live together happily ever after.
Shayla and I are planning our golden girl years as we speak.
We always joke that we're just gonna all put all the husbands in a house together, and then we'll all have a house together, and so we can just visit them as needed. We don't want to get rid of them, but it does seem like a much better plan if you just live with all your girlfriends long term.
Yeah, 100%.
At first, they call it revenge, and then they're like, no, it's justice. It's not just about revenge. Justice for all of the things that these men have put us through and all the sacrifices we've made for these relationships, all to go to shit on the whims of these men.
Yeah. They come back together and they're like, you know what, let's get these suckers, and they're figuring out different ways. So they're trying to find dirt on Morty and his business because Linda finds out from her Uncle Carmine.
I feel like Uncle Carmine is probably like a mob boss, and so he just has a hand in everything.
Okay. Well, he's Brenda's dad's brother. So she finds out that Morty, when he first started his business, like there was some issues, and so a good amount of product for his store came from, you know, falling off the truck. And so Brenda never knew this, and this was when they first got married. I think they were just in a place of the dad and uncle decided to like help him out, which means that his business started off with some illegal shit. So they're
Mhm.
trying to find, so her goal is to try to find proof of what happened. Then with the divorce with Elise, she decides, because they're supposed to split everything 50-50, she comes into his office unannounced and just has all these movers start taking all his shit from his office, and he's losing it. They also get his Lamborghini later, and
Mhm.
I love when Elise is she's on the treadmill and she's walking and she's like, the Lamborghini, like,
And they're just checking things off of the whiteboard that's in
that
there.
that whiteboard was epic. Like, who the fuck made that?
It was like a whole calendar year on
And
a giant like wall.
it just went across,
Yeah.
and there was different colors for the different men, so they knew where
Yes.
they were. It was very interesting. So
I love when like they take Bill's desk and he's like, back off, Jacko. And Johnny was like, I'm going to be saying that to you from now. At first, he's like, this is my office. Like, why are you taking my stuff? She's like, you said everything we acquired together. And all of this, because he wants all of the gifts he's ever given her back. So she's like, most of this stuff was gifts I've given you. So that goes into the pot as well. Like, Elise knows her shit.
she is, and she's given him a hard time. I do love that we are introduced to Jessie Span.
Yes. Elizabeth Berkley.
So we meet her and we find out that she has the role of Monique. And because when she meets her and runs up to her, she's like, you're going to be playing my mother. And she's like, what the fuck? So we find out Bill is with her.
And she's very young. Well, we find out later how young she is, but she looks very young. And then we move on over to Morty. They kidnap him, like full on kidnap him. And I love how Uncle Carmine is so fucking ride or die. And he's like, Morty is trash. You want me to take him out? And Brenda's like, no, we're just going to scare him. So they pull him into a butcher shop. Like there's hanging meat.
Yeah.
is this
This happens
is-
later
yeah.
because they set up the meeting with Camilla. Is that her name? Or Cornelia? I don't know. Maggie Smith. They have
Gwenella.
They have her play in to this whole thing because they need her to recommend Duarto as an
Yes.
interior designer so they get access into their apartment, Marty and Shelley's apartment. And so that's like what you were saying. We see that she's so uncultured, she doesn't know anything, and it's very easy to like throw the wool over her eyes. And so her Gwenella,
I
God, I hope.
love when Gwenella's like, take her fork, because the way she is eating that salad is fucking ridiculous.
So Duarto comes, but he says like he needs space in the house, and so they go out. He kicks them out essentially, and he gets the girls in. But of course, when Brenda sees this place, she is pissed because she's constantly having to beg Morty for money and all sorts of stuff just to like pay the rent for where her son and her live. Like it's awful. And so now she sees this apartment because he's always saying he doesn't have money, but he's buying Shelley all of these things.
And she literally has carte blanche to his bank account.
Yeah, it's he's trash all the way. And they find some documents, but they don't really find everything. And this is when you get the infamous window washing scene because it's like they're gonna die. And I love that Maggie Smith is in the car watching all this shit. She's like, oh God.
It is so good. The physical comedy in this scene and the way first when Morty and Shelley arrive back home before they're done searching his office, the way Annie panics.
And she throws the documents in like her clothes and she is so out of control.
And then they're trying to get out and they finally get on the
washer elevator thing.
scaffolding.
Yeah.
And then it seems like there's no governor on how fast it can be let down, which seems dangerous.
Yes.
And so they like fly down and Annie like doesn't even want to get on it. They're like forcing her on it. And I love how Elise is like, look, I can do it. I do all my own stunts. And she's like climbing into
Does one of them say, do you want to do it again or something?
Yeah, at the
Annie.
end when Brenda reaches the ground, she's like, do you want to do it again? And Annie's like, get me the fuck off of this thing.
I do also love that the staircase in that apartment doesn't have any real railings. Let me tell you, the way my anxiety, I could never. I can barely make it on the little steps I have here. There, I would fall. I'd be dead.
Oh, and in the window washing scene, they like go down and they stop at this other apartment, and it's a couple in bed, and the lady's like, is that Elise Elliott? And then they're like yelling, you look great. And she just goes, oh, thanks. And then they start falling for their
again.
So good. And did you recognize who that lady was in bed?
I don't remember. Who was it?
It was Ellis Gray from Grey's Anatomy.
That's right. I saw her picture in the cast. I was like, what the fuck was she? I was confused because before I saw I started doing the notes, I saw Jon Stewart and I saw her and I was like, where is she? Oh my God, yes.
Yep.
Spotted.
They also figure out, because they're like, we want to start this First Wives Club. For one, Elise needs a place to store all her shit. And number two, we need a place where we can kind of like meet together. And Elise is just like, oh yeah, by the way, I own this building.
Right.
Like, bitch, you didn't think about that before?
And first of all, how rich are you that you own a building and you don't have to do anything with it? Like you don't have tenants.
In New York.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has that building. And so the whole goal is to take all the assets that she's taken from Bill and sell it at Christie's and then give the money to Annie.
No, Annie buys all of the assets.
For $1.
From her, yeah. And then Annie's the one who does the auction at Christie's.
Right. So that she can have enough money to buy Aaron's partners out of
Yeah.
his ad agency, which she essentially, I think she like helped start.
Yeah. And she finds out that his partners went out because her daughter Chris agrees to go and intern at the advertising agency to get recon for Annie and the ladies.
And I think the biggest thing that all these men did was underestimate their wives.
Yep.
The scene in which Annie, I know I'm probably bouncing from some where we are, but when she goes in and Aaron comes into the office and sees that Annie's there sitting with his partners and their faces, the partners' faces, as they're, it's like, this is some good tea, but I'm a head out because things are getting real scary around here. And so Aaron starts pleading, he starts getting angry, like you could see him literally go from each stage of manipulation and
Yep. Because
threatening.
at first he's like, I'll take all of my accounts with me. You'll be left with nothing. I'll just go start another firm, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, by the way, I just secured a $45 million ad contract.
And this is how rich people do business. I know that
Yeah.
they're just like we're doing revenge essentially, but this is how it works. I know a friend, we're going to partner in this, we're going to make money here. So like the money just comes in a circle essentially, because the big client that Annie has now is going to be Morty's business.
Yeah.
It's epic. And if Elise does any more movies, I'm sure she could work with the studios to say, I think this ad agency could do the advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
It's chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. So while they're kind of reliving the window washing event, scaffolding stunt, they're at Elise's building. It does need a lot of work, but they're having like a little picnic and they're drinking wine and eating and just reminiscing. And so they did talk about how they did like this girl group for Cynthia's 21st birthday. And this is when we kind of get like a very shortened rendition of You Don't Own Me. And Annie is very stage shy. She's like, I don't want to sing by myself. You guys have to sing with me.
Mean Girls.
They're like, yeah, sure. And so they start out that way and then they stop singing when Annie gets like really into it.
Not really nice. Actually, I would be out of this friend group. If I were Annie, I wouldn't be in this friend group. These women are not nice to themselves. Women who aren't nice to themselves are most likely not going to be nice to you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they like turn things around towards the end. I'm glad that Annie gets more of a backbone, but you could tell that these two start getting up on her. So in this moment, they do that joke. It's a joke, whatever. But when they do have their falling out at Lisa's house, this is when they're like going through her house and they're seeing like her Golden Globes or Oscar, whatever that they have. I love that the Golden Globe that they pick up, the talkie that Brenda picks up, is actually Goldie Hawn's real golden, or was it an Oscar?
It was an Oscar at first, and then
I think it's
they
the
pick
Golden
up
Globe.
the Golden Globe is what they throw.
Right. So the funny thing is, in this scene, I never put two and two together, and Jennifer Lawrence was like dragged for this, but in her acceptance speech after winning the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy for Silver Linings Playbook in 2012, she says, oh, what does it say? It says, I beat Meryl, in reference to the line of this movie, but everybody like trashed her and
Their
said
pearls.
yeah, and said it was an insensitive comment because it just so happened she was up against Meryl Streep. And I'm like, oh man, I'm really mad as a 90s girl that I missed that reference. And we should apologize to Jennifer Lawrence for giving her shit for that. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was funny, but a lot of people thought it was mean. So in this scene, they start arguing because Elise is frustrated that she's not finding anything on Bill. and she's like, "You're gonna have Morty nailed to the wall. Aaron is gonna, be in big trouble." And so she just starts feeling sorry for herself, and she's just having a hard time. She also mentions that she got an offer for this like Broadway,
Mhm.
not a Broadway, but like a theater role. And Annie's like, "You should do it." And she's like, "No, this is for
A step
not for
down.
me."
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the time that they do really fall out and everyone is calling each other out on their shit. So Annie's trying to be the pacifist, tried to be the peacemaker, and the both Elise and Brenda are like going at each other's throats. Brenda is calling out the fact that Elise is a full-on alcoholic. She even pulls
Yeah.
up the garbage bag with, and you hear all of the bottles. It's pretty bad. Like that's a lot of bottles. And then Elise calls out Brenda for, her behavior, like kind of holding a torch for Morty and all that stuff, and not really having her own life
And
situation.
they pit Annie against one another and tell her she has
Mhm.
to choose which one she wants to be friends with at some point. And that's when Annie kind of loses it. Like her anger finally comes through.
It comes through because they make her choose, try to make her choose. When she doesn't choose, then they both start going after her back and forth.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, y'all are some bitches for real.
Yeah. I love how Annie says you both have severe psychological problems. And then they all start slapping one another too.
There ain't no way.
Mm-mm.
Ain't no way.
No. But before this scene, we get the scene at Christie's. And so Duarto and Granella are with Shelley. They're supposed to be buying things to decorate her
Her house.
house with Morty. And they just keep like running up her tab. She buys like this chase that she doesn't really want. And then there's this Japanese plate, a singular plate, and it's going for like $160,000. And she's like, Morty's going to be upset, blah, blah, blah. Brenda's in the back in disguise running up the tab. You have Elise that's sitting there and bidding on stuff to influence Shelley to buy it because Shelley looks up to Elise Elliott. And
Mhm.
then you have Annie in the back keeping track of how much money they're like essentially siphoning from Morty. She also purchases Bill's Lambo and gives it to Morty as a gift. And Morty's like, "You're spending all this fucking money." She's like, "I bought the Lambo as a gift for you." And he's like, "With my money, like that, I bought me a gift."
And then all she has to do is start taking off her clothes and seducing him, and he shuts up. I it's just so fucking easy. It's ridiculous.
Elise goes over to Brenda's and says like she doesn't want to be like Cynthia. She doesn't want to live this lonely existence without friends. I like how she walks into Brenda's house and says something like, "Oh, this is real." Like it's like an actual like normal house. Like and then this is when they kind of come back together and forming that deeper bond and saying like this is bigger than us. We can't let this happen to other women. We
Yeah.
need to do something about it. We need to think globally. So Elise quits drinking. She's like, "Hey, you know what? We don't have to actually have dirt on Bill. We could just imply that we have dirt on Bill." So this is where it gets muddy. Like, did she
She takes a
forge the
she take
yearbook?
So Elise takes Phoebe to lunch and they start talking. And that's when she finds out from that lunch all about Phoebe's situation and how old she really is. And then she digs up like the yearbook and
yearbook.
stuff. Yeah. So
Okay. Because
I
like she did say we just need Bill to think like he's done something wrong.
right.
But then she does actually find dirt on him.
Yes.
That's where I was confused. Okay. And this is also when she finds out that Phoebe was cast as Monique
Yeah.
and that she'd be playing her mom. I also like at the end of this scene where they're at lunch where Phoebe's like, "Oh, you're not Satan." Like, damn, Bill.
So could you imagine Jenny McCarthy Wahlberg that she would have been Phoebe? Could you see her as Phoebe
I
instead?
could.
She turned down the role, and I'm wondering, bitch, why? What were you doing? Singled out? Like basketball? Like this is
Truth.
top tier.
Yeah.
Jenny McCarthy, why the hell did you say no to First Wives Club?
She didn't know. Maybe she got the original script.
Maybe, because that was a miss.
Yeah. And the feds show up at Morty's store, or the feds,
Yeah, this is
in
when he gets
quotes.
kidnapped, like
It's
we were
really,
saying.
yeah, Uncle Carmine and his team throw a bag over his head and throw him in the trunk. And they show up at the butcher shop, and Brenda's like, I got all the shit on you. We've got letters, we've got your books, like
You're cooked.
you
You're
cooked.
done. And she's like, you have two choices. You could either go to prison and lose everything, or
Start giving me
Or-
fucking money.
you give me some money and I'm in control of everything, the marketing, the business, like I'm in charge. Pretty much he's like, okay, I have no fucking choice. So after all of them invoke their revenge
Mhm.
against their husbands, they give them all cards. They have these cute little First Wives Club business cards made, and they're told to meet them at the next day at a certain time. They get there, they're all I love how they're like sitting next to each other like they're in a waiting room.
Yeah.
And the daughter now works there.
I love how she's just always like, hey, daddy, even though she's like, I fucking hate you.
And right before they go in, she's like, and by the way, I am a lesbian, a big
A
one.
big one.
And this really does tell for the time that how different times are, like how
Mhm.
that would have been like one of the worst things possible for. I mean, I know there's some people who are still ignorant that that would be the worst thing ever
Yeah.
for their child, but at this time it's crazy. Oh, and we also miss one of my favorite scenes, which is when they go to the lesbian bar.
And
And
Big Boo from Orange is the New Black is there.
yeah, because Elise is a gay icon, of
Yeah.
course. And they're like dancing and having a great time. And all of her fans are like dancing up on her, and she's just having a great time. And Brenda has to step in and say, like, let's go. And then one of the girls are like, she's with me. And she's like, no, she's with me. Like, I love that scene so much. So much fun.
and Elise is just eating it up.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, yeah. The husband's essentially, you're going to start paying us.
Right.
And we're going to take your money and we're going to put it towards a more worthy cause that's bigger than us. Like revenge, if we just sought after revenge, we wouldn't be any better than y'all are. We're trying to make a difference.
Right.
There's a montage of like building renovations.
Doing it for themselves. What's happening?
That was lovely. They meet with other like first wives, start consulting with them. Elise is in the play. They show up for her. It's a huge success. So then we find out it's opening night for their efforts, and we find out it's the Cynthia Swan Griffin Crisis Center for Women. I feel like they should have taken the Griffin off and just like given her maiden name back, since her ex-husband was the one who kind of made her spiral anyway.
Or the fact that his last name is on there, it's like always attached to him is a
Yes.
reminder that you're shit.
That's true.
But Kathy Gifford comes, and it's like, gosh, this is so old.
I know.
She comes and interviews them, and there's a scene in that scene when they're asked, she's like, is it true that the reason you started this is because all your ex-husbands were, got younger wives or whatever? And they're like, yeah. There's a scene that they cut because they were like, where's your husband, Kathy Gifford's husband, very
Frank
popular.
Gifford.
Yeah. They're like, where's Frank? She's like, oh, he's at home watching Cody. And the last clip that Brenda says is, that's what you think. They took it out because literally, I think the next year, that's when his cheating scandal came out.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Whoops.
as a child, I remember that shit rolling out on Regis and Kelly, and like she was like, "I'm gonna stand
Kathy.
by my man." Oh yeah, Regis and Kathy, and like that's my man. I'm gonna stick beside him.
Just like
So,
Julie Chen Moonves.
ugh, sad.
All the husbands show up for the opening, but Morty drives up in Bill's Lamborghini. And Shelly's like, I'm not feeling special. Why are you going to your ex-wife's thing? Blah, blah, blah. I'm not Brenda. And he like looks at her and he's like, no, you're not.
Because all he asks is like, "Can you just come in for a little
Yeah.
bit and then we can leave?" And she can't even do that. And he realizes like how self-centered she is. He goes in there and he sees Brenda, and Brenda is dancing with their son Jason. Also, when Jason had his bar mitzvah, he had brought Shelly, and that was like a
Mhm.
whole thing. And so now Jason's like, "Oh God, I don't want you guys to fight," but they're actually really nice to each other. And Morty cuts in and starts dancing, and so we see reconciliation. Let me tell you, I rather sit on a hot coal of fucking fire than to take this man back.
Especially because we forgot this part when Shelly is like, uh, trying to get in good after she spends all that money at Christie's. She's like, she says something about not being engaged. And like the next scene we see with Jason and Brenda, Jason's telling him like, oh, dad got engaged to Shelly. So like you're now engaged to this woman that you left me for. And it's just gonna take a dance and a little like the tiniest apology ever, and I'm gonna swoon. I don't think so.
There's no way. Because despite like, okay, I get it. You guys both still love each other. Yeah, maybe he's having a midlife crisis, but he already showed you who he is.
Mm-hmm.
You as his wife who helped him build his career, that your family helped him build his career, and when he divorced you, he gave you nothing, that you're struggling,
Yep.
right? And clearly he had enough to help maintain. It's and just how mean he is to her without sticking up for her, putting Shelly in her place and saying, "You know what, we're not together anymore, but that's the mother of my child. Do not
Yeah.
speak to her like that in my presence." He does
Yeah.
none of these things. You know, he cheats on her, which is also horrible. So like he's already showed you
Who
who
he
he is as a
is.
person. So there's no fucking way.
Mm.
That's why I love when Annie was like, "Yeah, Aaron asked for us to get back together, and I told him to go to fucking hell." Like,
Yeah.
ain't no way. Ain't no way. And of course, Bill catches Shelly outside with his old Lamborghini,
I
and
know.
they deserve each other.
Yes.
He's like, "You here
100%.
with somebody?" She's like, "Not really, bitch."
But he learns from his mistakes because he's like, how old are you?
I would have been like, "Let me see that license. Don't
Yeah.
hesitate."
I'm gonna need some papers to confirm that you are of age of consent. So now that the event has ended, they're kind of closing up for the night, and they're all dressed. I was like, how did they phrase this dress code? Because it seems like almost all the women are in white and all the men are in gray. So it's not even like they were like it's black tie, because everyone, and I thought that was a really interesting thing to do.
Mm,
Was like kind of, you don't even get like that stark contrast. You're gray to us. Like
yeah.
you fade into the background. So then we get the full "you don't own me" dance routine. And that's how the movie ends, is them dancing out of the space and into the street, and they just dance off into the moonlight together.
I love how, like, I know this dance routine, and I love how when Annie sings her, or Diane Keaton essentially sings her part, she goes, "I know that's gonna be a
Don't
GIF."
tell me what to say.
Like, are you having a seizure or are you singing?
That's why I'm like, Shelley or Sally Fields could have done that. Like
Mhm.
she would. You just have to carry some sort of a tune. You don't have to be.
Or be dubbed by someone
Yeah,
else. It
yeah,
wouldn't be the first time.
it's true. Well, that is First Wives Club. Let's hear from the moms on their like overall
Just-
opinion about the movie and any other sprinklings of insight they have.
Well, anything else that stood out for you guys for this about this movie?
I liked Diane Keaton's outfits. I liked her stuff. I did. I liked how she put together. I mean, Goldie Hawn was a little bit different because she was more, sexy
Fabulous.
and girly and stuff. Like she was fat. Yeah, she was
Yeah.
fabulous. And then I just liked Diane Keaton. I think that goes back to Annie Hall era
Mhm.
with that movie, and she dressed. I liked her stuff. Yeah, it's about it.
Yeah, I just think Diane Keaton was playing Diane Keaton like she does in a lot of
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that is true. That's true. That's true.
What about you?
I really enjoy the end song.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fun song.
Yeah.
And their little dance.
Uh-huh.
So, Jackie and Terry, did it bother you that all of their outfits weren't the same kind of white? My mom and I had this conversation last night. That
No.
one was like a winter white, one had cream. Like, did it bother you? Did you even think about it? Just a question.
Cross my mind.
Jackie?
No.
So, Mom, I am your daughter. Maury.
It bothered you?
Does
Did it bother you
It
guys?
didn't bother me this time. I mean, I noticed it, but it didn't. I'm like,
It always bothered me about that movie. I love their outfits, but I'm like,
Wow.
and you know what else it is? Okay, let's say Elise was in winter white fully, and then Annie was in cream, and then Brenda was in like off white. Fine. But Annie had a cream jacket with an off white outfit, and I'm just like,
Oh,
pick
oh,
a
did ya?
white.
not notice that. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
You'll never not look
Yeah.
at it again. I promise
Okay.
you that.
Something to focus on.
Yes.
I have just a fun fact that I thought would be interesting. What would you guys have thought about Sally Field playing the role of Annie instead of Diane Keaton? Do you think it would have still worked, or would you have preferred Diane Keaton?
Well, you just said Diane Keaton was playing Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Sally Field plays Sally Field in every movie. So it would have been the same.
That would have been the same difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think Diane Keaton was perfect for that role. She's kind of quirky and
Yeah.
a wimp, wimpy, because her husband,
The
gosh,
pedo. We don't
He's
like
the
it.
worst. Out
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
three of them, he is the
Really,
absolute worst.
yeah. he was worse. And what he did and how he conned her, I didn't think that she responded besides screaming. I think that was enough. I would have killed him, just for how he did. No, that was a total betrayal. I didn't like that.
And
at
I'm
all.
thinking, aren't there laws against therapists, or was he not?
Yes, I said this. She should have called the bar or whatever,
Right.
whatever association. Because it's not a lawyer, it's not a bar, but like there's
Oh,
a
psychiatrist. Yeah.
yeah. They would.
Yeah, an
she would-
association.
But I
Yeah.
think there's rules about them having relationships with their patients. I really
Yeah.
do.
She
Yeah.
could have gotten in trouble. I told Jackie
Yeah.
I would have ruined both their lives, slowly and surely.
But you
I
know
like
what?
Marcia Gay Harden.
I do
It was
too.
actress.
Yeah, me too. I like her. I think the rules were a little bit different back then, as opposed to now, where, I mean, I know that there are standards, but I do think how easily it was for them to get, get all of the, what do you call it? The furniture and all the things that they
yeah.
sold and everything. That I'm like, wow, I could have done that. I mean, that's too easy. I mean, that was very, very easy to do. Why couldn't I have done that? I could have sold everything and to my friends and yeah. So
The movies made it look a lot easier than it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah.
also extremely rich. I feel like rich
Yeah.
people live by totally different rules.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they just called somebody and had it taken care of.
Right. I would have had the uncle like take care of all of them and just call it a day. None of this First Wives Club. Just take them out. Ice them.
Danielle.
Sorry, Mom.
The script itself had an interesting journey. So it originally belonged to Sherry Lansing, who bought the unpublished manuscript of the novel in 91 after many publishers had rejected it. She handed it over to producer Scott Rudin when she became the CEO of Paramount Pictures in 92. She was quoted saying, "It was one of the single best ideas for a movie I had ever heard," in a 1996 interview with the New York Times. "The situation of a woman getting left for a younger version of herself was far too common, but we didn't want a movie about women as victims. We wanted a movie about empowerment." Scott Rudin then consulted Robert Harling to write the screenplay, whose script was reworked by Paul Rudnick when Harding left to direct The Evening Star in 1996. I think it's very interesting that this movie about female empowerment and like taking power back, all of the screenplay writers seem to be men.
But I'm not surprised at the time. It's insane, but also I think they did a good job because
I think so too.
there weren't anything. There was still a woman behind all of this. So the great thing is that she was the CEO of Paramount. So I think she had a lot more to say about what was going on here. But also the fact that
we also had a male director.
Yeah.
Like it was very male driven, which leads me to question, like, were there ghostwriters who were women and they just were not credited with this movie?
probably 100%. There were a lot of hands on this script. So I wouldn't be surprised if other people had their hands in it. Well, if you if you loved this episode, have questions for the moms, questions for us, and you want to give us feedback, head over to No More Late Fees at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Threads. And let's get to our present day ratings. Start with you, Jackie.
It's still a would buy. I enjoyed every moment of this movie, and when Ken gets home, I'll probably rewatch it with him. Like, it's so good.
Same. A win is win. I love this movie a lot. It's one of my all-time favorites. And it's probably because of the personal connection that I attach it with my mom.
Yeah.
Speaking of the moms, let's ask them what their present day rating after making them rewatch it. All right, now we're going to ask you guys, now that you've rewatched the movie, what your ratings today would be. So I'll start with you, Mom. What would your rating be?
I would do a 5-day rental
Okay.
because I saw so many different things that I didn't pay attention to the first time. So yes, I'm going to go back and watch it again because I
Good.
know there's just so many things. So
I would buy it, but you don't have to because you can watch it free
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would still buy it if we couldn't watch it free. I would definitely buy it.
Yeah.
Again, because I enjoyed it again.
Okay.
Well, Jackie and I said would buy it on both rounds.
Yep.
Well, apparently we very much like revenge a lot. I told
All the
Jackie.
actresses in it too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them all.
And we have a couple of comments from Instagram for our quick drop. Those men are lucky all they lost was their money. And that's the Doom Generation podcast. I love a vengeful response. This movie, in all caps, is a treasure and an amazing woman empowerment film from Millennium_girl GURL. I love this movie, but I wish retroactive recasting were a thing. Same.
Mhm.
2 words, Stephen Collins. And that's from Angela To Be Pecked. And then love this movie, 10 out of 10 from Wherever Sunshine. So if you want to be featured on our quick drop, give us a ring at 909-601-6653. Twat us at the Twitters, hum us at the threads. message us on Instagram and you could be featured on a future episode.
And join us next week as we take on the DCOM Brink. And don't forget to come back next week for our bonus episode with our moms.
And thank you again to our mamas for joining us. I know it was some heavy lifting, some technology that we had to learn how to use, but we appreciate y'all and we love you. And yeah, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, and thank you for having us.
Thank you for birthing me. And as always, be kind and rewind.